Palestine. So life doesn't end in Ramallah. Like things are moving 24 hours and so on. We have a lot of resources. I was really surprised to visit Ramallah this past summer, because when I was there before, like some time ago, you know, all these years ago in the 90s, versus now, you know, I mean, Ramallah has been changing a lot. I mean, you have the high rises, you have, you know, excellent infrastructure. I mean, things are really different in Ramallah than, you know, the way I remember Ramallah in the 90s when I went there in the 90s to visit. So things are really getting much better, different, you know, the infrastructures are better. And I think part of it is because Ramallah is hosting, for right now, at least on a temporary base, hosting, you know, all the embassies, the consulate to the Palestinian Authority are all in Ramallah. It's I will not call it the capital, because for us as Palestinians, you know, our capital, and this is a very important piece here for us, even as AMPAL, as Americans and Palestinians for Peace, is that one of the things that we call for is definitely the East Jerusalem to be the capital of Palestine and the West Jerusalem to be the capital of the State of Israel, and have the two capitals side by side as the capitals of the two nations and the two countries. But meanwhile, of course, because of the Israeli occupation and so on, you cannot really put everything in East Jerusalem yet. And that's why Ramallah is hosting almost everything, from the president, Palestinian president, to the prime minister, to prime ministers, to everybody are in Ramallah right now. And that's why, yeah.
So about the sister city, you know, learning on this show, we've talked about the Palestinian issue so many times, and this season we're focusing primarily on the Palestinian issue. But you're saying that there will be an exchange of students, maybe foreign exchange students, going back and forth between Muscatine and Ramallah.
Yeah.
That will be easy? How will this work? I thought that it was very difficult to leave the West Bank.
Yeah, it is somehow difficult, depending on, you know, once we as a college, for example, as Muscatine Community College, once we send the I-20 and the acceptance letter to the students, they can use that with a letter of invitation that I will write myself on behalf of Muscatine Sister City to invite them and to come to Muscatine and offer them, you know, a host stay and home family and all that stuff. They will use this to get the visa from the American consulate in Jerusalem. Once they get this, again, they can travel. Of course, they are not allowed, Palestinians are not allowed at all to travel through the airport. So they have to go through the bridge to Amman, Jordan, and then travel from Amman, Jordan to again, United States. At this point, I would like, as a matter of fact, if we can bring some of the pictures from my trip last summer, as a matter of fact, and start talking about that, because some of these pictures will show you, again, for example, or talk about some of the meetings that I had and who they are. The first picture that you see here is with Mr. Bassam Salhi. Mr. Bassam Salhi is a very good friend of mine. We were together as kids, getting involved in the Palestinian student movement all the way. Bassam Salhi, he is right now is the Secretary General for the Palestinian People Party.
So you said student movement. Last week we talked about the, last episode we talked about the history. What time period are we looking at right now?
Well, as a matter of fact, now there is no secrets anymore. If we go back to the other picture, the first picture again, well, at some point in 1979, yeah, here, this picture. In 1979, I was assigned by late President Arafat to be the leader of the Palestinian student movement again. And Mr. Bassam Salhi was assigned by late President Arafat to be the leader of the student movement at the colleges and universities in Palestine. And that's why we work together very closely as two leaders of the student movement in Palestine. And as I said again, that goes back to 1979. He is now the Secretary General of the Palestinian People Party. And it was nice to meet with him and talk to him about some projects that we can do together as his party and the Americans and Palestinians for Peace. Bassam also is an executive member of the executive committee for the Palestinian Liberation Organization also, and he is also like a member of the National Palestinian Council. So he has really, he is really good now. If we move or continue to move with the pictures and move to the second picture here, what you see here is myself signing what we call a memo of understanding on behalf of Muscatine Community College with the principal of the French School in Ramallah. French School is an American school, mainly it's a Quakers school. And we thought like it will be good to go through them and start with them at least to establish that memo of understanding in order to start bringing their students hopefully to Muscatine Community College to continue their education.
How has the reception been in Muscatine?
Well, great. As a matter of fact, everybody cannot wait to see the Palestinian flag is raised hopefully in Muscatine in June during the official signing agreement. I mean, the mayor is very supportive of the whole thing. The college friends. I mean, a lot of people are very supportive of really what we are doing.
People excited about going? Is the mayor?
The mayor will be going hopefully in the future, but the first step now is to bring the Ramallah mayor to Muscatine. Yeah, but we are hoping definitely that at some point he will be going there. The next picture, if we bring different pictures now, this is me with Dr. Lily Fidi is the Secretary General for the Palestinian Initiative for the Promotion of Global Dialogue and Democracy, which is called Muftah. Dr. Lily is a board member for AMPAL. I'm here meeting with her as a board member for the Americans and Palestinians for Peace, also in her office in Ramallah, and talking about how we also, as a board member for AMPAL and also the Secretary General for another big NGO organization in Palestine, how we're going to work together towards achieving really what we would like to achieve as the Americans and Palestinians for Peace. If we continue to move more with the pictures, for example, the fourth picture that you see here is meeting with the also the person who is, or the chairperson of something called Give Palestine. Her name is Raja Shat. Her husband is a well-known Palestinian figure, Nabil Shat. He was the in charge with the foreign policy in the Palestinian government for a long time under late President Mr. Arafat, and even right now under President Abbas. Raja Shat and myself are trying to work together on some what we call social programs in Palestine. We are trying to put together some sort of a plan to come up with some programs to support mainly kids and women in Palestine. And she is the head of what we call Give Palestine as an NGO. If we continue with that, with this, here is my meeting with Ms. Rawan Abu Yusuf, who is the director of the European Affairs Department at the Palestinian National Authority. And Rawan, as a matter of fact, is in charge. She has a very high rank at the Palestinian Foreign Ministry, and we start talking about, maybe having, some sort of a job with the foreign ministry in the future. She talked about the possibility of offering me an ambassadorship job for me in the sometime in the future, and we talk about it. I will continue to talk about that, and we'll see what will happen as a result of that. Here, as you see, I was received and honored by the Special Honor Guards at the Palestinian headquarters. Before I had before I had meetings with the President Abbas top advisors. Here you see me laying a wreath on the late President Arafat mausoleum. As a matter of fact, so on behalf of Americans and Palestinians for peace. After this, of course, we went into a meeting with Mr. Abdullah Franji. Abdullah Franji is the top advisor for or President Mahmoud Abbas for the international affairs, and he is a minister himself.
So this is a high-ranking official.
This
right
is the highest-ranking official in the Palestinian government for international affairs that advises President Abbas on any international issues. So that's, again, something that I did while I'm there. And if we continue, as a matter of fact, you know, with the pictures, you see like here when President Abbas' press secretary, as a matter of fact, welcomed me in front of the Palestinian headquarters. This particular picture, I assume, or not the picture itself, but the scene itself is very famous because every leader from all over the world, when they go to meet with President Abbas, mainly they usually welcome them at the steps of this building. So I was welcomed by President Abbas' press secretary, Mr. Mahmoud Adwan, and taken through the building again to meet with Mr. Franji, which is the picture that we just talked about. Now, the next picture is, of course, my picture with the mayor of Ramallah, Ms. Janet Mikhail. Ms. Janet Mikhail is the mayor of Ramallah. As a matter of fact, if we go back to the previous picture, as a matter of fact, here is the mayor of Ramallah, and the one to my left, as a matter of fact, he is the vice mayor of Ramallah and another member of the city council. And this is really the moment when I extended the invitation to join Muscatine sister city. And as a matter of fact, a week later, after working with the council and everybody else, we came back with the positive answer, which is the answer that I waited for a long time. That okay, well, it's a good time to go back to Muscatine with, you know, achieving that Ramallah will be definitely a sister city with Muscatine. If we continue with the pictures, as a matter of fact, remember with Give Palestine, as a matter of fact, the picture before that, if we can go to the picture before
the one
that.
with the blocks?
Yeah. Well, AMPAL, or on behalf of AMPAL, we decided to donate different, you know, materials for kids. Remember, this organization, Give Palestine, works for kids and women. And we thought, like, we want to start with a small project with them, and we decided to donate, you know, many items for kids to come and work on that will improve their mental ability to put things together, to read, to you know, to count, and so on. So this is like with some of the board of directors for this organization. And the last picture that we have here is my picture with the same thing with Mr. Muhammad Adwan, who is the president, the President Mahmoud Abbas press secretary, and the person with the blue shirt, Mr. Ali Hussein. He is the director of the Palestinian news agency, which is called WAFA. This is the official news agency, and I'm doing also some projects with them, hoping that in a year or two we'll start sending them some students, as a matter of fact, especially journalism students, to go and have an internship with the Palestinian news agency and spend the summer there. So we are hoping that, you know, if it's not this summer, by next summer, this project will start too.
Excellent. One of the things in there that I really wanted to ask is that we discussed the hospital exchange and so forth, or medical exchange. Would Muscatine be sending supplies to Ramallah at all, medical supplies and so forth? Because I know there's a blockade where it's very difficult to get things into the Palestinian territories. Is that some of the plan?
It's not necessarily a supply. As I said, it will be more like exchanging expertise more than a supply. You know, because as you said, it's not easy to, for example, pack some medical supply and ship that to Palestine or to Ramallah, for example, because everything, as you know, everything has to go through the Israelis, and I don't think they will allow that. But we are trying to at least establish, once we establish the official agreement, which we're hoping, as I said again, sometime in the middle of June, when the mayor of Ramallah, Ms. Janet Mikhail, comes to sign this agreement here in Muscatine. Once we do this, we are hoping that definitely there's something that we can definitely work on as a result of this broad agreement from city to city.
Because, I mean, when there's supplies provided across the border, being in the United States, Muscatine being in the state of Iowa, wouldn't that give it credibility in going across the Israeli border into the West Bank if it was coming from the United States?
Well, I'm glad, Jared, that you mentioned that. I don't think really they care much about anybody in the world once it comes to Palestinian assistance. It doesn't matter. I am an American citizen. I was forbidden from going back to my own country and visit for 12 years up until I had to put lawyers to fight on my behalf, human rights organizations to fight on my behalf in order to get my identity card back and be able to go as I did in this past summer. So even though, you know, they are getting our dollar, tax dollars, and even though they are #1 country in the world that gets military assistance and financial assistance from us, Israel is based on what I will call a discrimination laws when it comes to Palestinians. They portray themselves as the only democracy in the Middle East. My response to that will be very easy. If Israel is considered as a democracy or the only democracy in the Middle East, I don't want to be called a democracy, as a matter of fact, because I don't want to buy what the Israeli democracy means. There is no way that you can be a democracy when you occupy a full nation, a whole nation, again, for more than 60 years. There's no way that I will call you democracy when you are trying to build your country based on a religious viewpoint. Because right now, even in their Knesset, they are even talking about passing a law that will say that Israel identity is a Jewish identity. Now, the big question here is what? Well, we have around 1 million Palestinians that lives in what I call the 1948 area, which what most people refer to as the State of Israel. Now, what will happen to this 1 million people? Are we calling, and I don't mean we, meaning the Americans and Palestinians for Peace, nor me as John, but I'm talking on the Israeli side, are they calling for a mass transfer of the 1 million people from the 1948 area to other areas, to other Arab countries, so that they can achieve that goal, which is the Jewish identity of the State of Israel? So I will not call Israel a democracy when they are trying to build it based on, again, the Jewish identity, nor I will call them democracy when they are occupying militarily, again, a whole nation, again, and a whole people with all this. When they are looking at us as not even a second-class citizen, they are looking at us maybe 100, citizen class. They are discriminating against us. They are building an apartheid wall, or what I call a hate wall, that separates, again, Palestinians from Palestinians, and at the same time they are confiscating Palestinians' lands in order to build this kind of wall. It's time, I think, for Americans to see what's going on. And it's time for Americans to call their reps, to call their senators, to call the State Department and say enough is enough. When I go to Israel, I want to be treated as an American, as any other American. Unfortunately, I'm an American citizen that is not treated as an American citizen because I am from a Palestinian heritage.
So you're an American citizen and you had your passport revoked?
Yes.
You were detained. Why were you detained?
Well, I was detained because of my political, again, activities. When I was in Palestine, as a student leader in Palestine, I was in the Israeli prisons different times. I was tortured by what is called the only democracy in the Middle East. I was tortured. I was put in a small room that I couldn't even stand up nor can lay down for 18 days. And I was allowed only, out of that room, only 5 minutes every 24 hours. Interrogation, constantly, beating, torturing, just because I was leading the student movement, or I was one of the leaders of the Palestinian student movement that calls for, again, the freedom and called for statehood for my own people. So that's what I'm trying to say is that American public needs to understand right now that it's time now for us to start changing policy. It's time for us to start looking at Israel as the only country that can be above the law. It's time for us to look at Israel as a country that is similar to any other country, and if they make a mistake, we should tell them you are wrong, and we should not side with them because they are doing something wrong. And those are very important things. We need what I would say a total change in the American foreign policy in order to start seeing things moving towards what I would call just peace.
And I mean, we're working towards peace. That's what we want. That's the ultimate goal, right? Is peace and justice. And yet, I mean, there's still so much of this perception in the United States that it's Israel against the Palestinians. Israel is favored and so forth. I mean, how though? How do we get to that point? How do we get to the point where the American citizens can really see what's going on? And like your story, you were an American citizen and you were, as you described, tortured by Israel and so forth.
And Jared, it's important for the American people to know because, you know, it's our tax dollar that goes to the state of Israel to make them stronger from a military standpoint, okay, and to give them also the green light to continue to discriminate against Palestinians. You know, I always tell people, you know, it's very important thing to know because sometimes people say, well, what do you need more than that? You know, Israel is giving you, for example, Ramallah, giving you Bethlehem, giving you Hebron. What do you need more than that? Well, I need the roads that connect Ramallah with Bethlehem. I need the road that connect, for example, Bethlehem and Hebron. Because you know what? You are really, what they created right now, they created what I will call a bigger prison in which they are putting everybody in big prison, which we call cities now in Palestine. And in order for you really to go from Ramallah to next city next to you, you cannot. You have to have an Israeli permission in order to go there because, as I said again, because of the apartheid wall that they are building now, and as a result of that are circulating every city in the Palestinian area with that wall, so that, okay, well, instead of putting you in an Israeli prison anymore, no, I will put you in your own city in a bigger prison, and you cannot leave that unless I say so. And that's the daily life of the Palestinian. That even, you know, it's because of this apartheid or hate wall, now we see a brother was separated from the other brother. For example, there are many cases where somebody, for example, have a house on the right side of the street, and his or her brother, for example, have a house on the left side of the street. Now the wall came in between. Now this brother cannot see his brother or his sister on the other side because of the wall. So it's really tough situation there.
Absolutely. We have a few minutes left, and I was curious about some of the current events and how you feel that they may affect the situation in Israel and Palestine. Most notably, what's happening in Egypt. Learned earlier today that President Mubarak won't be stepping down, but I understand that you've been talking a lot recently about the Egyptian issue. You recently visited Egypt.
Yes.
So do you have anything to share?
Yeah, I as a matter of fact, I was in Egypt, in Cairo, Alexandria, and Mansoura a month ago. And I went there to establish a study abroad program for our students from Muscatine Community College to go there in May, as a matter of fact. And now we decided to postpone that trip. Let's remember that Hosni Mubarak, the Egyptian president, is what I will call the Israeli puppet. He is really the Israeli major security person. They put him there and they keep him strong there in order to do the dirty job for the Israelis. He is building a wall to separate the Egypt from Gaza Strip again, and trying to suffocate again the people in Gaza Strip, the same way that Israel is trying to suffocate Gaza Strip people on the other side. So for me, I don't really feel any bad for such a person who I will call a puppet and a dictator that made his people live almost in hell, as a matter of fact, because of of his vision of stealing the Egyptian money and getting all this money and all this capital into his own account. I mean, if you know, like the news, I mean, it's nothing new anymore. I mean, they are talking about like almost $70 billion in his personal account. Well, where did he come up with this money? This is definitely the Egyptian people money, not his money. And I'm hoping sooner or later that he will step down without any more bloodshed, so that and give the Egyptian people again the right to select and choose their own leader as a result of that.
Do you foresee, I mean, do you kind of understand the situation enough to kind of see that politically, is there a possibility that whoever may take the place of Mubarak, their government, may allow more supplies to reach the residents of Gaza? I mean, there's a wall between Egypt and Gaza, right? I mean, is there a potential government that would take that wall down and let supplies, economic resources, medical supplies, reach those people freely? As
a Palestinian, that's what I hope. I hope that whoever going to be the Egyptian president in the future will lend his hand to the Palestinian people, at least in the Gaza Strip, and help them as much as he can. Palestinians living in Gaza are living in misery for the past 3 years. They are short in medical supply, food supply, and all that stuff. We are talking about collective punishment on the hand of the Israelis on one side, and the hand of this dictator, Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak on the other side, who is a puppet for Israel. If you think about it, if you look at all the news in the past 2.5 weeks, or since January 25th, when the revolutions in Egypt started, who is still fighting for Mubarak to stay and sending these strong messages and signals to other Arab countries and to the U.S. government and administration and so on? Israel, because they have definitely a reason why they want him to be there, because they want him to continue to do the dirty job on their behalf.
I understand. And so we're reaching towards the end of the program right now, and I just would like to give you the opportunity to share with our audience ways that they can get involved. Maybe AMPAL or other organizations, or ways that you see that.
Yeah. That's a good chance for me to say, if you believe in peace, if you like to fight for human rights, human dignity, regardless where is that issue can be, whether in Palestine, in Israel,